In the mid-19th century, farming was a desperate race against time. Imagine working from dawn until dusk, swinging a heavy scythe through endless wheat fields, only to watch half of it rot before you could finish. By 1847, entire harvests spoiled where they grew, while families starved just miles away. Each swing of the blade was like the ticking of a clock, slow, relentless, and impossible to outrun. But in a quiet blacksmith shop in Canada, a man named Daniel Massey was building something that would change everything. What started as small, hand-forged tools would grow into an empire of machines painted red, spreading across 5 continents. These machines didn't just change farming, they changed humanity's relationship with food. Yet the story wasn't smooth. Along the way were devastating fires, factory collapses, bloody wars, and even a coin toss that determined the company's future. This is the story of how one blacksmith's vision became the company that fed the world, and how their red tractors came to symbolize survival itself. In the 1800s, most farmers were bound by traditions passed down through generations. Their fathers had cut with scythes, and so did they. But tradition was no match for the forces of nature. A single farmer could cut maybe 1 acre of grain per day. If rains came early, or if the weather turned warm too quickly, crops spoiled before they could be gathered. It was a losing battle that left families hungry. In Newcastle, Ontario, Daniel Massey saw this problem up close. He was a blacksmith by trade, repairing plows, sharpening blades, and fixing whatever his neighbors brought to him. But he also noticed something. The world didn't just need better tools, it needed faster ones. Around the same time, in Beamsville, another blacksmith named Massey-Harris had the same idea. Harris built hay rakes, Massey worked on plows. Neither man knew they were about to kickstart a revolution. By the 1850s, whispers of a strange invention were spreading. Machines that could cut grain faster than a dozen men. At first, farmers mocked the idea. They trusted horses, not gears and blades. To them, machines looked fragile and unpredictable. But everything changed in 1852 when Massey began producing Canada's first mechanical mowing machine, the Ketchum mower. 1 horse pulling this contraption could outwork 20 men swinging scythes. Entire fields that once took weeks could be cleared in days. Farmers who had laughed at the machines quickly changed their tune. Demand exploded so quickly that neither Massey nor Harris could keep up. For the first time, mechanization had proven itself as not just practical, but essential. Unfortunately, Daniel Massey didn't live to see the full impact. He died in 1856, leaving the company to his 33-year-old son, Hart. But Hart had vision, and he was about to push the company into an entirely new era. Hart Massey wasted no time innovating. In 1861, he introduced the Woods mower, and just 2 years later, the Woods self-rake reaper. These weren't simple tools. They were entire harvesting systems. They cut and gathered grain automatically, reducing the back-breaking labor that had defined farming for centuries. But success brought tragedy. In 1864, the Massey factory burned to the ground. For most businesses, this would have been the end. Instead, Hart rebuilt within months, stronger than before. By 1879, the company had moved operations to Toronto and renamed itself the Massey Manufacturing Company. Meanwhile, Massey-Harris's son, John, was pushing hard on the competition. While Massey focused on mowers, Harris perfected reapers and binders. Their 1890 Brantford binder was a sensation in Europe where it could tie and eject bundles without stopping. Harris gained international recognition, while Massey dominated the Canadian market. The rivalry drove innovation, but it also drove them toward each other. By 1891, after secret talks, the two companies merged to form Massey-Harris. Overnight, they became the largest farm equipment maker in the entire British Empire. Their Toronto factory ran with assembly lines years before Henry Ford popularized the idea. Farmers who had once harvested by hand were now using machines that cut, bound, and threshed without stopping. The age of the scythe was truly over. But even the most advanced machines of the late 1800s still had one limitation. They relied on horses. By 1900, cities were growing, farms were expanding, and horses simply couldn't keep up. The next revolution wouldn't eat hay. It would burn gasoline. In 1910, a Massey-Harris salesman stood in a Montana field watching 200 horses pulling plows. His job was to convince farmers that gasoline-powered tractors could do better. It wasn't easy. Horses didn't break down. Horses didn't require fuel shipments. Horses could even reproduce. Early tractors, meanwhile, were noisy, unreliable, and expensive. Still, Massey-Harris knew the future was mechanical. They acquired Johnston Harvester Company in 1910 to expand into the United States, but they struggled to keep up with International Harvester, who had mastered mass production. Their 1918 Parrott tractor was solid, but unremarkable. Farmers weren't impressed. The real breakthrough came in 1928 when Massey-Harris acquired J.I. Case Plow Works. With it came the Wallace tractor design, a machine built for mud, slopes, and rough terrain. The Wallace U-frame chassis was revolutionary, reducing weight while increasing strength. This engineering birthed the 1930 model GP15/22, a tractor that could climb hills horses couldn't touch. Farmers wrote letters calling it the first tractor that truly worked with their land instead of against it. Massey was finally back in the fight. When World War II erupted, Massey-Harris pivoted from tractors to tanks. Their M5 Stuart light tanks became a symbol of reliability, sharing engineering principles with their farm equipment, durability, serviceability, and performance in difficult terrain. The war years gave Massey access to advanced metallurgy and precision manufacturing that would later transform their agricultural products. But their boldest move came in 1944. With farmhands overseas fighting the war, crops in North America risked rotting in the fields. Massey-Harris convinced the United States government to let them build 500 self-propelled combines for what became known as the Harvest Brigade. The Model 21 combines swept across 1 million acres, saving hundreds of thousands of man-hours. Farmers who had once distrusted machines now watched a single operator harvest 35 acres a day. It wasn't just efficiency, it was survival. This cemented Massey-Harris as not just a manufacturer, but a lifeline for farmers. But the real game changer didn't come from Massey. It actually came from a stubborn Irish engineer named Harry Ferguson. Back in 1925, while testing one of his prototypes, Ferguson nearly died when his tractor flipped backward. Instead of giving up, he realized the accident revealed the flaw in tractor design itself. Implements dragged dangerously behind tractors, often jerking or flipping. Farmers were being injured. Or, even worse. Ferguson's solution was genius in its simplicity, the three-point hitch. By connecting implements directly to the tractor's frame in a triangular configuration, he eliminated the instability. His hydraulic system allowed implements to automatically adjust based on soil resistance. Suddenly, plowing wasn't a battle against the machine. It actually felt like an extension of the farmer's own body. By 1939, Ferguson had partnered with Henry Ford to produce the famous 9N tractor, which sold over 300,000 units. But when the partnership soured, Ferguson needed a new ally. In 1953, after tense negotiations with Massey-Harris, the deal came down to a single coin toss. Massey won. The company was renamed Massey-Harris Ferguson, and soon after, simply Massey-Ferguson. With Ferguson's hitch system, Massey had the most advanced tractors on Earth. Farmers no longer needed constant adjustments. Implements lifted automatically when hitting rocky soil, then returned to depth once clear. It saved time, money, and lives. By 1960, over 80% of tractors worldwide used Ferguson's system, a design still unchanged today. The 1950s and 60s became the golden era of Massey-Ferguson. Their tractors spread across the globe, from the wheat fields of Saskatchewan to the rice paddies of Thailand. Stories poured in of MF-35s working for 12 hours straight, only to start again the next morning without hesitation. The acquisition of Perkins engines gave Massey another advantage: multi-fuel capability. Farmers in developing nations could run their tractors on kerosene or low-grade diesel, which was, absolutely critical where supplies were unreliable. Perkins engines ran longer, used less fuel, and lasted thousands of hours beyond competitors. The MF-135, introduced in the 1960s, became the best-selling tractor in history. Over 500,000 were built, and many still run today. Its combination of reliability, affordability, and adaptability made it the tractor of choice in more than 120 countries. In Africa, Asia, and South America, the MF-135 wasn't just a machine, it was survival itself. But even giants stumble. In the 1970s, Massey overextended into developing markets just as interest rates skyrocketed. Farmers couldn't afford loans, and unsold tractors piled up in lots. In 1978, Massey-Ferguson reported a $262 million loss, the largest in Canadian history at the time. Factories closed, workers lost jobs, and debt spiraled into the billions. Yet farmers refused to give up on their Masseys. Across the world, mechanics kept old MF-135s alive, fabricating parts when replacements weren't available. The loyalty of farmers preserved the brand, even as the company itself nearly collapsed. In 1994, salvation came. AGCO, then a relatively small player, bought Massey-Ferguson for $328 million. Many saw only a struggling company. AGCO saw a global network and a brand farmers trusted with their livelihoods. It was the rebirth of Massey-Ferguson. Under AGCO, Massey reinvented itself. The Beauvais factory in France became the centerpiece of global production. By 2022, it had built its 1 millionth tractor. The new MF8S series blended tradition with innovation, quieter cabs, advanced fuel efficiency, and real-time data systems. But Massey kept its focus practical. Tractors remained serviceable with simple tools, because not every farmer has access to high-tech workshops. Their ideal combine was another milestone, using sensors and AI to automatically adjust settings while harvesting. Instead of chasing sheer horsepower, Massey focused on reducing grain loss, improving efficiency, and listening to farmer feedback. Even during global supply chain crises in the 2020s, Massey's localized production kept running while competitors stalled. Today, their tractors operate in over 120 countries, from the largest farms in Europe to small plots in Africa. From a small blacksmith shop in Ontario to a global network feeding billions, Massey-Ferguson's story is one of survival. Fires, wars, bankruptcies, and near-death accidents could have ended it all. Instead, each challenge shaped the company into what it is today. Next time you walk through a grocery store and see bread on the shelf, there's a good chance the wheat that made it was harvested by a Massey-Ferguson tractor. Those iconic red machines aren't just steel and paint. They're the reason fields keep producing year after year. And for countless farmers, they're not just machines. They're lifelines. So now it's your turn. Have you or someone in your family ever worked with a Massey-Ferguson? Share your story below. Because just like the tractors themselves, these stories keep history alive. Moving forward, one red machine at a time.